Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today we are talking about how to grow a profitable business with consistent content with our expert, Larissa Macleman. Welcome, Larissa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Yeah, it's so good to have you here. So for those of you who don't know Larissa, she is a successful salon coach and owner and founder at Salon Owners Collective. So she created this brand, was it 2016, Larissa?
Yep, end of 2016, yep.
Yep, and has gone on to grow a team of staff within that business and also coaches within her brand, other coaches beside herself, as well as create Salon Bot, which is a chatbot system for salons using Facebook Messenger to connect with their clients. So she's built a strong following online with her podcast, the Salon Owners Collective podcast, and today we are going to chat all about the impact that this has had on her business. So welcome again, Larissa, and welcome to any of you that are watching. And if you're watching, let us know in the comments that you're here. And also if you're watching the replay, do the same, because it's really good to see how many of you are tuning in to this. So let's start off with Larissa. Let's hear a little bit about your business story and how you became to be a salon business coach.
Okay, cool. Well, I started in the industry at the ripe old age of 16. I won't bore you with that part of the story, but I am a qualified stylist, and being qualified at 20, which is still quite young, right? I went looking for the next big thing. I'd outgrown the business that I was, that I was in, and I just couldn't find the thing that I wanted. And I will say it was my naive self, not my ego self, thought, well, if I couldn't find anywhere to do, to work, I'll just make my own. Probably a little bit. It was definitely ignorance. I did not know what I was getting myself into.
So but how old were you at this point?
20.
Yeah. That's pretty
probably a good thing. Yeah, probably a good thing that I didn't know, because if I knew what I was getting myself into, I probably would have chickened out. But I started just with me and one other, and I grew the business. We had 2 locations at one point, which was really a lesson in how not to scale quickly. I was not out of the operations of the business enough to really cope with having 2 locations. But when I sold my business 7 years ago, coming up 7 years next month, I had a team of 30. We had a $2 million a month monthly run rate turnover, and I worked in and on the business 15 hours of the week, which freed me up to then start a new business, which is a crazy thing to do when you've got a young family and 2 babies, trying to launch a tech company to the industry and run a salon and raise a family and trying to work part-time. So it was all a bit cray-cray, but I learned a lot. And it was that journey of how I removed myself out of the daily operations of the business, and I had it fully managed, that really made me realize that I had something to offer to the industry and help other overwhelmed, overstressed out, overworked salon owners get free of the daily operations so they could actually run and grow a successful, profitable business. Because too many business owners are so in the business doing everything that they actually become their own roadblock to success. So that's what I do now. I coach salon owners through a program called Salon Mastery, Live a Life of Freedom and Profit. So it's all about how to work smarter and not harder, and not overwork, and be uber profitable. And of course, one of the pieces to becoming successful as a salon owner is you need to have a good marketing system. So that's where the messenger and social media marketing piece of the puzzle comes into play. So that's 3 years old now, that company.
Amazing. So how did your experience from your previous businesses before you started Salon Owners Collective kind of translate into you coming into this business? Because you launched your podcast pretty much at the same time that you launched the business, didn't you?
Yeah, I managed to get it live 3 months after I officially left my day job and started my first paying customer. Although I had already done a couple of episodes, that were under my belt and ready to go. But like anything, when you're starting a new business, there's all the things that you need to do, all the chickens and the eggs. What do you do first? But one of the one of the reasons that I was able to grow a business to the size that I did, the Salon business, is that I had really worked out a good marketing strategy. And although I didn't really realize it at the time, it was a content-based strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't understand it from the outside like I do now. It was more sort of organically from the inside. And we had a really great, repeatable strategy that just helped us grow. So as I was trying to launch my tech company, I was adopting those strategies, and on the things that I'd learned, I'd put myself through lots of education to learn the modern way of doing things. And while I was doing that, once I'd sold the business, Salon started to ask me, I guess on the back of the success, to come and help them with their social media and their marketing. I worked for a website company. I really wanted to learn SEO. It's like I knew it worked, I knew how it worked, but I didn't know how to do it myself, and I wanted to replicate that. So I thought the best way to go and do that was to go and work for a website company. And then I spent a couple of years working for a couple of different appointment booking software companies, and it was during that time that I could start to see the strategies that I knew and was subsequently learning how I could help salon owners do that, and even for myself. But I could see it from the outside, because when you're in your own business, you're in it, you don't have the visibility over what you're doing, why you're doing it. Even though you might, in theory, might know what you should do, you don't always do those things. So it was a really good opportunity to see it from the outside. And I guess it was that gap that allowed me to transition from inside a salon into actually how could I do those same strategies for the Salon Owners Collective and be a primarily content marketing first business as a strategy to market.
Okay, so what is your main reason for choosing that content marketing first strategy? Is it because you'd seen it work?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I had seen it work in the things that we were doing ourselves, actually primarily out of a desire just to communicate with our potential and existing clients about what we were doing as a retention strategy, actually, which then subsequently translated into a new client attraction strategy. I wasn't aiming to do that, but it just kind of happened. And then I got to experiment on other salons. And then I was fortunate enough to try and launch this other company and work for Timely, which is where you and I met. And I could see those strategies come together and play out on a bigger scale. And so when I came to launch Salon Owners Collective, it actually almost wasn't a conscious decision. It just was the way that I knew and the way that I understood it. And I think it is a modern environment strategy. You know, we are in the digital era. How do people search and find businesses? Well, it's digital. How do you cut through the noise? You get to know somebody, like them, trust them by the content that they put out there into the world. This is the voice. This is the window of a business, is your digital or your social platform. Like a bricks and mortar business, a potential client might walk past the window and have a look and go, well, that looks nice. Well, that same kind of approach is for any digital company that doesn't have a literal window. You have to create your window so people can see inside and imagine whether or not you are the right person for them. So how else can you do it? There is no other way.
That's such a great way to describe it. But how would you respond to if someone asks you the question of, I do content marketing because I'm posting on Facebook or Instagram every day?
I think it's a valid strategy, but it is a one-dimensional strategy. If you want to build a solid business that has a predictable way to attract new clients, you can't create a one-legged stool, because it's wobbly. You stand on it and it'll fall over. So yes, it's a great strategy, but it is a one-dimensional strategy. You need all the other pieces together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because to me, like I see a lot of people thinking content marketing is simply your social media platforms. But to me, it's so much more than that, because you need different layers. I feel in like the podcast and the blog and that kind of thing, it's for that next step person, like the person who wants to dig a little bit deeper and get to know your brand a lot more, and you can build trust and authority so much faster.
I think you can create a lot of visibility on social media, but if you don't diversify to more than that, then it never becomes more than just visibility.
Yeah.
You can't build authority without being in authoritative places. And for me, iTunes was one of those places. It was a place of authority. Anyone can post anything on a Facebook page, but to have a really solid blog or to have a really solid podcast or to be published on other people's platforms or in print, that stuff is what builds authority and backs up all the faff that's on social media. It gives you stuff to share on social media, of course.
Yeah, totally. Because that is right what you say about how anyone can post on social media. But I think from an outsider's point of view, if you've got a podcast and you're putting it out weekly, consistently, or publishing a blog or whatever it is, then you're sending a message out to everyone that you're not just here as a hobby, you know?
I think somewhere along the line, I don't know where I learned this, but it stuck with me. And it's probably, if you asked me what was one of the key components to my success in terms of using content marketing strategy to build myself as an authority and for people to pay attention to me, one of the best things that I ever did was commit to consistency and showing up every single week. So in 3 years, I've probably missed 4 podcasts in 3 years in terms of a weekly deliverable, and those were in the early years when it was just me and it was really hard, but I won't miss one now, and I'm committed to that because that part of consistency is part of my brand trust stamp, if you will, like that I'm there every single week. I'm in it for the long haul. This is what I do. It's not my hobby. It's not my part-time gig. I'm showing up for my audience. And now that I have an audience, lo and behold, if we get a link wrong or something going wrong, people are sitting there waiting for it. We actually uploaded, funnily enough, last week's audio into this week's podcast, and within 5 minutes of it going live, people were jumping up and down going, "Oh, I've already listened to this one. Where's the next one? I'm waiting for it." So, I have this is a good problem. It's not a problem, but this is a good thing because people are waiting for it. And so that kind of anticipation, or people that are committed or following with me, I have an obligation to show up for them, but also it makes, when it's time to sell something, I actually have an audience to sell to. I'm not
which is essential.
I'm not selling to a blank field of nobodies, crickets.
Yeah.
So
why did you choose a podcast over like a blog or like a YouTube channel or something like that? What was your reasoning for going down the podcast route?
I have a blog because I know that I need to show up for SEO for Google as well, but I only do that once a month. And I know too that Google wants fresh content, doesn't want my old stuff from months ago. So I do publish on there regularly, but I only do that monthly. So I like a blog, but I find it it's harder for me to write a blog. It's easier for me to show up and talk, right? That's the easy bit. I'm a talking person. And so why did I choose a podcast over those other things? At the time, YouTube felt like a really big stretch for me to show up on video, to just figure out something to say, what I wanted to say, and then to show up on video felt like a huge stretch personally. And also for me to try and compete in that environment also felt like too big a personal stretch. Now I probably would feel like if I chose to switch, now I could do that and I would be really comfortable to do that. I have a Facebook group and I'm really happy to show up there. But this is 3 years down the track, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like a podcast I could commit to the audio. Nobody was watching. I could pre-record it. I didn't have to show up live, which was a way bigger stretch for me at the time. But also it had the authority points of being on iTunes and being on a sort of a high authority platform was definitely a huge appeal.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's important to choose the content that's going to be easiest for you to produce rather than pick the hardest one or the battle for you. Like if you don't want to show up on video, then don't choose video.
Because then you won't be consistent.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Exactly. I think a lot of people have that problem with blogging as well. And a big barrier to blogging as well is not having confidence in your writing ability. So just because you don't want to blog doesn't mean that you can't do content marketing, I think is a big lesson. And Google have actually started prioritizing podcasts in their search this year, which is quite cool. So
great.
It's not all about, blogging for SEO. You can actually use a podcast for SEO as well.
Yeah, cool.
So what are your biggest lessons or takeaways from having a podcast?
I guess the unexpected benefit. I'd heard people talk about it, but I didn't expect it to happen to me. The unexpected benefit was because of the consistency, I think, and the real commitment to it. When I put a call out for having a spot open for sales, I have people show up already sold, if you will, ready, wanting to do business with me, because I'm in their ears as a person and as a voice, and they feel like they get to know me. It's really funny because people think they know me, but I don't know them at all, and I haven't had any. So there's this one-way kind of relationship. It's really funny, and I think that really has been an unexpected benefit of doing it, which has just helped me continue to commit to it, I guess. That actually wasn't the question though. Can you ask me again?
Your biggest lessons and takeaways from having a podcast. So we're going to talk about the impact after this.
Yeah, well, that was a takeaway, unexpected takeaway.
Yeah.
But what was the biggest lesson? It takes time to develop your story and what it is that you want to say to the world. And it takes time to develop how your knowledge is put together, and how it takes time to learn to be a storyteller. And I think my advice around that is that you just got to JFDI and start somewhere. Like if I go back and listen to my early podcasts, that I actually don't even do that. I don't listen to any of them. I don't want to listen to them, but they would have been terrible. But I think my takeaway is just start, just start where you're at. And as you develop your storytelling and your ability to present or write or whatever, whether it's a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube, it doesn't matter what it is, you just need to start and be committed to the process and ride the wave of getting better, and get confident in what it is that you have to say to the world. And so that would be the first thing, is that I learned just to start and be okay with getting better along the way. And then just be committed to the process and being consistent. I think that has probably that's the biggest lesson that has served me well.
Yeah, okay. So the consistency thing, how does that kind of have an impact? Like, well, you've said that people are kind of waiting for the next episode to come out. So are people actually tuning in? Is it a Tuesday that your podcast comes out, right? So are they actually tuning in, waiting for it?
Well, I think we publish actually on my team do it now, so that sounds terrible. I don't even know. Somewhere between Friday and Sunday, where it actually goes published. It's quite organised. My team's very systematic now, so it goes live somewhere along the line. And we send out our email and all our comms on Tuesday to let people know. And we've chosen Tuesday because quite intentionally, Monday is a day that a lot of my industry is not working or doing other things. But by Tuesday, they're ready. They're at the beginning of their work week. We send it out early in the morning to catch them. And so that's kind of our best open rate time. It is systematic, and people, it is. It's quite, if we make a mistake, they tell us kindly. So they tell us. So I know that they're patiently waiting. And I just think consistency builds trust. And so that's been real valuable. One of my other takeaways, and I want to share this actually because it's super duper important, is more important than creating your next episode or blog post, is that there's no point creating content if you've got nobody looking at it. So I think there should be an equal amount of effort in distribution than there is in creation. Because, and I certainly was guilty of this in the early days. I committed to doing a weekly podcast, but I didn't really know what was the best ways to get it out there. And yes, I always had paid ads and whatnot, but unless you're getting your content seen by people, what's the point? If you only got 50 people that, it reaches only 50 people on your post, Well,
Yeah.
you can do better than that, right? Because if 50 people see it, only probably one's going to read it. So it is about a volume game. And I guess you need to be committed to some kind of traffic source, organic or paid.
Yeah, so even if you currently have 0 audience, you should still start.
Yeah.
But start moving, start the process, but be
Yeah.
committed to promotion rather than just
Yeah.
producing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So like in the early days, I didn't start with ads, maybe straight away, but I did start with posting it, and then I would share it personally, and I shared it in some community groups that I was in. And that's all I did for the first wee while, is just sharing it in groups. And so somebody would see it and then sending it out the email. I started with a small list, it was just a list of people I knew. And I started sending it to them, and then got on to building my email list. That was the other thing, because otherwise, again, unless you're building that email list, then you've got nobody to send your content to. If you've got a lovely blog and nobody's reading it, then it's a lot of energy for not a lot of payoff. So I think they need equal amounts of attention.
Yeah. I have found with my audience, like a big barrier to creating the content is actually the energy required. So how do you kind of propose to manage that when you're just starting out? Because you've got a team now, right? But when you didn't have a team, what did that look like? So you missed 4 episodes, but that's all.
I know.
It's
pretty good, right?
Really. Yeah. But how did you go about kind of managing having to do that? Yet obviously you have a business to run at the same time, so you're like serving your clients as well. So do you have any tips in terms of like management of content when you're just starting out?
I guess it's about finding a regular rhythm and then again committing to it. It's self-discipline, to be honest. And so around self-discipline is batching. I would by far recommend batching if you can. Now, I'm not a big fan personally of batching a whole bunch in a day because I just get brain fried. I can do 2, maybe 3 in a day if they're interviews. But for me to come up with the content and write the outline and then record, but I'll batch in a week. I'll have a week where I'll batch a whole bunch and spread them out a little bit over the week, and that seems to work fine. In the early days, I was less booked, so it was much easier for me to do it because I had the time and space to do that. But my suggestion would be to create yourself a system. Now, it's really hard as an entrepreneur to create systems for yourself. I'm amazing at creating systems and then telling my team to do it. I'm not so good at creating systems for myself and following my own systems, because following systems is boring. That's why we went into business, so we didn't have to follow somebody else's systems, right?
Yeah.
But if you can be a little bit disciplined and say, right, for example, every Thursday, I'm going to write a blog, I'm going to record it, whatever I'm going to do. Then I'm going to post it in 5 places, and write yourself a list and then just do the list. And, it might take you a couple of hours, but just suck it up and get it done. And then you're free till next Thursday or whatever. All I can say is it's managing your own self. Really. Yeah. And then as soon as I could afford it.
I love that.
Parenting yourself, for sure. So when I had my business, I started it in August. 1st of August was my first paying customers appointment, and I'd left my job. And then by March, I think, the following year, I got my first VA, and it was such a hard decision to bring her on for 5 hours a week. I mean, it doesn't seem silly now, but I deliberated over so much time. But she came on, I don't think she ever worked 5 hours a week. She went straight into about 10, 12, 15. She was at 15 hours before I knew it. But I could offload all of what I think is crappy jobs or time-consuming jobs that have no immediate payoff. But because I chose her for the personality that she is, she loves doing process. She loves doing things on repeat. She likes to organize systems so they go faster, and she loves to click on things and make them go live, and then she feels like she's done a job and she's happy. Whereas I hate that stuff. I don't like those things. So this is how I do it now, and there's been incremental evolution towards this. So now I'll record a podcast and I click hang up. I put the link of the podcast into an Asana task, and then I don't see it again.
Awesome.
But it's taken 2 years to get it there. But it started off that I would write the words and I'd put it in the Asana task and I'd get it all ready, and then she would just upload it, put the words on the website, put the image in the right place, and I taught her how to do that, and then she did that bit, and then I could move on to go and seeing a client or something. So I suggest, as soon as you've got a rhythm and you've committed to it and you're starting to get some traction, the minute you can afford 5 hours, get someone for 5 hours. Like, there are heaps of people that want to work for 5 hours. You know, $20 an hour, it's $100. And what can I do in 5 hours? I can make $500 in 5 hours. I can make $1,000 in 5 hours if I really put my mind to it, you know?
Yeah, totally. Because sometimes I hear people say, well, I don't want to get a VA to do jobs that aren't revenue generating, like, you know, they might be uploading a blog or whatever, but they're thinking, well, I don't know if that blog's going to make me any money. So I'm paying someone to do something that might not bring me any money. But then, like you said, the flip side of that is, how much money could you be earning doing something that's actually way more valuable to your business, rather than spending all your time uploading images and that kind of thing that a lot of people can do.
It's upside down.
Yeah.
Like, you should only be doing income generating activity, and your team should be doing the non-income generating activity. Because exactly. The reason you're the business owner is, there's a reason you're the business owner, because you're the one that knows the story or knows the content or knows the whatever it is that you're selling. And so you need to stay in that space and then get everybody else to do all the things. Like, I don't click on anything now, and I love it, because it actually is not I make mistakes. It's not my zone of genius. I'm a terrible clicky person. I upload the wrong stuff, and I even pay people wrong. Like, I just delegated that today to the same VA. It's like, do you know what? I keep making mistakes. I'm going to get you to do it now.
Yeah, like, I think that's a lesson in itself. You don't have to be a perfectionist, or you don't have to be like amazing, the best at anything. You just need to have a vision, and you need to be the one that wants to get momentum and get going as fast as possible by strategically bringing other people in underneath to help you with all of that boring stuff.
Yeah.
Because to some people it's not boring.
Totally. I actually embrace my uselessness now. And I'll quite happily say to my team, look, honestly, why? I even typed today, we use Slack, and I made some mistake. Oh no, anyway, I did something not right. And I was like, who let me run this company? Like, I should not be doing anything tactical, anything operational. Clearly I got it off the ground and did something right, but I should not be doing that anymore, because once you're in the bigger thinking space, it's really hard to go down the rabbit hole. And so it's just, I guess it's a step-by-step evolution towards gaining more momentum. The more that you can palm off to people that love doing that stuff, the faster you'll gain momentum. You just have to live with the lag time between getting someone a VA for 5 hours until you can generate enough to make $100 times 5 hours. There's a lag time. It might be 2 weeks, might be 5 weeks, it might be 3 months, depending on what discipline you have to do the right thing and not just go down another clicky rabbit hole, right? So you just have to live in the lag time until it catches up. Like, your team, even though they're doing clicky things, actually is creating you income generating momentum, as long as you stay in your zone of genius.
And also, the other thing with content is, it might not be revenue today, but you're keeping your funnel filled up with leads by putting out that regular content. So it's almost like you're guaranteeing your future of your business. Yeah. I guess
another good tip around that would be that making sure that there's enough of a call to action in the majority of your content. There's no point putting out a whole bunch of stuff there and then not asking anybody to do anything. Give you their email address, give them some download or something. It doesn't have to be every single one, but you want each piece of content to have a purpose. And primarily that purpose is either buy something or join the list, or, you know, engage with you. Even a post should be asking for a comment or asking for some kind of engagement. Everything needs, a majority of things need some kind of call to action. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, really.
So do you have a call to action on every podcast, or just every few?
No, there's always a call to action, but it's not always a buying one. So the call to action might be DM me and tell me what you think, or it might be tell a friend, or it might be come and join my group, or it might be get my freebie. I don't know. We vary it depending on what's happening, but there's always some kind of do something. Leave me a review, something, or not very often, but every now it might just be come and see, like, join me next week. That's a call to action. It's a pretty soft one.
Yeah. Keep them engaged though. Cool.
Yeah.
So what impact do you think your podcast has had on your business, like from a financial perspective? And if you could look back and imagine your business without the podcast, how do you think it would look? That's kind of a double-barreled question.
Okay, make sure I answer both. The first one, what impact has it made? Well, I guess the way that I measure that, or a good way to explain it, is so to sell my coaching program, I have a one-on-one sales call, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 80% of those calls are people that are avid followers of my podcast, and they primarily tell me that because they're excited to talk to me, which sounds so silly. I'm like, what? Oh my God, Larissa, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been following you for months and I loved when you said blah, 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 and I've been doing blah, 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 blah that you told me to do. And I'm like, I don't even know you. So it's kind of cool because it's quite an intimate thing, right? I'm in their earbuds and I'm talking to them. They're just not talking back to me. And so I guess the biggest impact for me is I've built a certain amount of what I would call like trust. By the time they get to buying from me, they're pretty much, a majority of them have pretty much decided that I'm a good match. They like me and my vibe and the things that I say, and that they want to do business with me. So it makes that piece of the process really easy. So that's probably the biggest impact.
Yeah.
What would my business be like if I didn't do the podcast or any content marketing? Because I think it's not the podcast alone. It's all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lead generation stuff. I guess I can track it too because we use messenger marketing. I can see when somebody comes in and books a call, I can see what their journey's been like in terms of the content that they've engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
What would my business be like without it? I think I would be like I was in the early days. I'd be calling people and saying, oh, hi, I know you. I'd love to work with you. Do you want to have a chat about it? I would be reaching out to people and being that nasty sales call, guy on the door, knocking on the door saying, do you want to buy my knives or something? So it flips it, right? Instead of me having to be the outreach, and you exhaust, and if you've got that model, you exhaust your networks pretty quickly, and then you're into cold calling. And that's not my style. So I don't want to do cold calling marketing. I want to do content marketing. Allows me to get known to a much wider audience. So by the time I ask them to do business with me, they've kind of already decided to say yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
That answer that question?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's all a bunch of roses. We have made many a mistake, and sometimes getting the messaging is wrong, getting clear about who I'm trying to sell to. I've brought on wrong customers that I decided I didn't really like working with that kind of person. It's I think the one mistake that we can make is think that there are going to be no mistakes. So you just have to ride the wave. It's not all bed of roses, but for the majority of the time, it is definitely the way to go, I think, in this modern environment.
Yeah, definitely. So what's your number one piece of advice you'd say to someone that's looking to start a podcast?
Start today.
I knew you were going to say that.
Don't wait. Start now.
Yeah.
And just JFDI, like you, I think one of the biggest things you need to get over is putting yourself out there. I know that for me, that was really a big thing. Like I remember when I got married, I had to get over the fact that I was going to have my photo taken. I hated having my photo taken. And I had to decide to get over that. It was a conscious choice that I wanted to have nice wedding photos. I had to get over this. And I think the similar process was, deciding to put my business on the map meant that I had to put myself on the map, and I had to get over showing up. And what is the fear? The fear is being criticized of putting yourself out there. But you know what? If there's criticism going on about me, I really don't see it. I know it happens. I can't be all things to all people. There'll be a bunch of people that will think I'm an idiot, or say, don't believe what I say, or think that I talk a lot of crap. And the good thing is that the majority of the time I don't hear any of that. And I just need to ignore it and just go, those aren't my people, because I just have to be true to what I'm doing and JFDI, just do it anyway.
Yeah. I think that with any type of marketing, I mean, you should be polarizing people in a way, because you have your stand and what you believe in, and you're going to have people that love you even more for it, and people that just say, no, they're not for
Yeah,
me, but
not
that's
for
good.
me.
That's good
Yep.
for your business, because then you don't have to deal with clients who could potentially end up become paying customers and then be the wrong customers and be really
Yeah.
hard to service.
And that's definitely happened also. And then I also have people who have said, no, I don't want to be your customer. I'm not going to take you up on your offer, and then still continue to follow me. And that's okay too, because you can't have all of them being your customer. Do you know? You can't be everything to everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another point. I think we've still got a little bit more time. About what you just said about how people have said no to working with you, but they continue to listen to your free content. And, like some people can get frustrated, like I'm giving away everything for free and this person's just taking it and they're never going to pay me. But I think the flip side of that is, who knows, like 5 years down the line, they might actually change their mind.
But also, do you know how many recommendations I've had from people that are not my customer? Do you know, so-and-so engages in all of my free, like I'm doing a series at the moment on a Monday, every Monday morning I'm live in my group. And so it's a free series. It's quite a high value piece. And I've got people that are engaging in that, but you know what? They tell their friends. So they might not buy, but their friends know. And it's elevating my presence. And you're right, they might not buy from me this year. But I get people emailing. I had one that emailed and said, I'm really enjoying the series. Thank you so much. I'm not ready to do business. It's quite funny that they were justifying why they were not doing business with me. I'm not doing it this year because blah, 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 blah. And I'm really looking forward to, joining you next year. It's like, great. They already know that next year they want to do business with me and they're enjoying the free stuff for now. So that's great. Do you know?
Yeah.
So it's not all about instant wins right now. You want enough customers now and you want to bake some up for the future.
Yeah, I definitely think content marketing is a bit more of a midterm strategy rather than a wins right now type thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably a really important distinction.
Yeah.
And also, you're never going to sell to 100% of your audience. Like those people that have 10,000 followers, which I don't, those people that have 10,000, imagine they sold to 100% of them. It's just not a realistic expectation. So I think, you know these stats probably more than I do. If a website converts at 1 to 3%,
like over 5 is amazing. Yeah.
So why would we expect, of all the people that engage and follow and open our emails, why would we expect any more than that? So I think it's an unrealistic expectation that you're going to have everybody buy, or that you won't have people that engage and don't buy. That's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a shopping mall, not every person that walks past your shop is going to come in and buy from you. They're just going to walk past. So it's the same.
Yeah, that's so true. That's like such an important mindset thing, because it can feel like in business, like, you're getting inquiries, but people aren't converting and all of that. But if you look at it, like using that analogy of if you're in a shopping mall and people are coming in and having a browse and then leaving again, the shopkeepers aren't taking offense.
No, they're not going, what are you doing in my shop? You didn't buy from me.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm going to quit.
I know. But they might come again. You think how many times online that you go to a clothing store and you put, a nice top in the cart, doesn't mean you buy it.
Yeah.
You're just looking and you think, oh yeah, I'd have a look at that. I'll keep it in there for a while. I'll think about it. And you may or may not come back. Doesn't mean you'll never buy from that brand again.
Yeah. And that's like that customer journey. And where a podcast or some kind of content beyond social media really works quite well, because that person who's a maybe, like they've added to cart, but they haven't converted yet, they're not 100% sold, but they're still going to keep listening to your content and
you get another shot.
Yeah, like heaps more shots.
Yeah.
And educating them and giving them information that's going to help them, even on a free level. I mean, they're going to appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. For sure. One last question. So you're based in Wellington in New Zealand, right? But you have customers all over the world?
So really Perth to the west coast of the US, mid-US, west coast, east coast, I don't know.
East coast is
California side. Yeah, because the time zone just gets in the way, really. And one of my decisions in business is that for the majority of the time I work school hours. I've got kids to pick up at 3. Can't be jumping on live videos and I got kids in the background who may or may not behave. So I, for the most part, work between 9 and 3. And so that gives me a runway from Perth to LA, basically. San Francisco and that side. Once I get in, so I do have a few people in the mid-US, but there's a funny price conversion thing that goes on there, and then the time zone starts to get a bit tricky. UK is almost out because a lot of my content I provide live. There's a lot of live component to it. So, and also done for your marketing. 12 hours is a nightmare. You've got like 2-hour window at each end of the day, and I don't want to be working between 6 and 7.
So you really have created the business by design.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the good thing I think about a podcast is that you can attract people from outside of your immediate area quite easily. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And actually 75% of my business is Australia. I actually have a very small New Zealand contingent. I guess that's probably just pure. I found this on the web for 7. That's probably just purely, again, numbers. You know, Australia's 4-7 times bigger than New Zealand. So
a big market, yeah. Oh, definitely. I've noticed that since moving over here. It's a way bigger market.
Yeah,
which is only a good thing for a business. For
sure. Yeah, awesome. I mean, in the modern world, you don't have to have barriers, really. You know, physical barriers.
Yeah.
Unless you put them there.
Oh, it's been so awesome to chat with you about all things content marketing and podcasting.
Thank you for having me. I hope it's been useful for somebody and inspired them to get on and get some content going.
Yeah, and if any of you watching have any questions, feel free to pop them in the thread below, and either me or Larissa will have a look at them.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Thanks, Louise.
So, thanks, Larissa. I'll see you another day, probably.
Yeah. See ya.
Okay, bye.